All right, let's get into this conversation now. The Health Department has confirmed that it will cancel the controversial 836 million rand tender to install oxygen plants at about 55 government hospitals. The department's decision follows a joint exposé by Daily Maverick-amaBhungane revealing alleged irregularities in the multi-million rand tender. Well, let's get more perspective now about this decision to withdraw the deal. And joining me is the Health Minister, Dr Aaron Motsoaledi. Minister, good afternoon to you and thank you for your time. What led you to instruct that this contract be cancelled with speed?
The media allegations that were coming in fast and very fast, almost every week, about the allegations of corruption, with members of parliament asking questions. The Minister of Public Works, being the authority to whom the IDT was reporting, has been exchanging a lot of communication with IDT. And from what I was seeing, because I was also discussing with him, it looked like the matter was even heading for the courts. Now, I was worried because this is not money from the South African fiscus. It's donor funding from an international health funding organization, the Global Fund. And the manner in which they gave this funding, they say the contract will be over by November next year. Now, if we are still toing and froing and arguing and investigating, it worried me. There are other state entities that can do a similar job that was given to the IDT. Yeah. And I thought the best thing is for us to take a decision to terminate it and take it to other state entities that can do a similar job.
Yeah, and I'm sure, Minister, a number of people are going to say this is actually a sensible decision given the bad reporting around this contract. But if you could just get us into a little bit of that toing and froing between the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure and the entity which was the implementing agent here, the Independent Development Trust. Interesting words you are using, that there was toing and froing to a point where you could see that this was going to land up in court. What makes you come to those observations?
Well, it's because I was in touch with the minister and he told me that he's giving an instruction. He's going to write a letter to give an instruction that the contract be terminated and be started afresh by the IDT. And he said to me, if they refuse, he's heading to the courts. So I was not just guessing. And I started realizing that there is something that's not well here, whereby if we end up in courts with this tender hanging, we'll be very much in serious trouble. More so, the owner, the person to whom this contract was given, died, I think about 2 or 3 days after these allegations came out. He's no more. And I understand there's also toing and froing in the company also. So I realized that we are sitting ducks as a Department of Health. The best thing is to be released, take this money because it's donor-funded money. It's a donor-funded project. Go elsewhere within the state. There are many such entities that can do this job.
Yeah.
So that the people of South Africa do not lose.
The interesting bit here, Minister, is that you are of the strong opinion that state investigating agencies need to be roped into this matter and investigate the Independent Development Trust. And you're saying actually in the statement that this is a sentiment shared by the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. Are you suggesting that the SIU get involved here?
I'll be very happy if they do. I'll definitely be very happy. In fact, I'm going to motivate for that.
You're going to motivate for the SIU to get involved. It means that there is inherent distrust, therefore, Minister Motsoaledi, in how the IDT conducts its affairs.
No, you cannot, any time there is this type of controversy, You cannot investigate yourself. You call investigating agencies that are regarded as neutral. It's not that we didn't trust them. We just believe they can't investigate themselves.
So let's talk about the Global Fund, which is the donor money that was extended to South Africa for these oxygen plants that would be installed in public hospitals. How much money was allocated to this particular contract?
I don't know exactly how much was to the contract, but the Global Fund itself gives us 10 billion rands every 3 years. That is the amount they give at the moment. Of course, it increases every 3 years, but at the moment it's 10 billion. They said part of this money should be used to install oxygen. There is another project whereby they are installing solar panels in hospitals, but this one for oxygen because they got disturbed during COVID when some hospitals were running out of oxygen and fighting for suppliers. So it will make a lot of sense for every hospital to be able to produce its own oxygen. So it looks like at that moment their calculation was specifically about the number of hospitals and the number of oxygen plants.
Yeah, the donor itself, the understanding is that they got worried when they, I suppose, started seeing these media articles, and you were the person who had to almost calm the waters. How worried were they about things going awry?
Coincidentally, when the first articles came out, I was in Brazil for a G20 health ministers meeting. And the health ministers meeting are attended by the World Health Organization, PEPFAR, Global Fund, etc. So members of the board of Global Fund were there. And coincidentally, I had a bilateral with them. You know, when you attend these international events, because people are there together at the same time, they do a lot of bilaterals. They even put rooms for bilaterals so that you don't have to leave your country, visit Global Fund, visit PEPFAR, visit World Health Organization, you all meet there. So it was pre-arranged that I'm going to meet them in Brazil. So when we arrived there, the story broke out when we were having a meeting. And naturally, this matter was raised, that they are worried because remember the Global Fund has got what we call replenishment, whereby they come together and let the richer countries and richer business people around the world, the world billionaires contribute to it. So they are worried that if the money is contributed and they hear that in one part of the world where their money is being used, there are these type of things, it is something that naturally should worry any donor. And I'm worried too as a recipient because I don't want our donors to look at us as cans, you know?
Yeah. And perhaps finally, Minister, the hospitals that were meant to be recipients of these oxygen plants, the understanding is that there's about 55 of them. How long is the delay going to be? Because these are critical services.
That's exactly what worries me. Because by now, the project should be starting, but it can't start here. We are going to start afresh because the sites were already handed over. What was left was for the shovels to start hitting the ground. And unfortunately, that cannot happen because of these complications. And so that's exactly what worries me, that the more we wait, the more we are going to be in trouble.
Yeah. All right, Minister, I want to pose this last question, and I think South Africans will be heartened by what you have done here, where there is suspicion of behavior that is unbecoming, and you are strongly suggesting that the SIU get involved here. Are you just as worried that perhaps people from your own department could potentially be found in the wrong, or is that something that you're confident is not going to affect health officials?
No, I can't be. I can't be confident with anything. I'm very much open. That's why our statement ended up by saying the law must take its course. As to who was involved, whether it's in health or IDT, it's immaterial. The fact is that it's corruption that is pointed at state officials and at the South African state. And from the point of view of the Global Fund, they won't care less whether it's in IDT or in public works or in health. To them, it's in the South African state. And that's exactly what worries me. So whoever is found to be guilty, the law must take its course, regardless of in which department they are.
How swift will be your action if your own officials are involved here?
Well, it will depend what the SIU finds or what whoever is investigating. It will depend what they find and what their recommendations are.
Health Minister Dr Aaron Motsoaledi, thank you very much for your time talking to us about a very, very important project. The oxygen plants that were meant to be installed at about 55 of the public hospitals, well, that is now going to be slightly delayed. The minister worried himself about that particular prospect, but he says that they needed to act at the slightest sniff of corruption.